All right, you guys, welcome back to the Tell It Like It Is podcast. We got in my opinion, a pretty special episode this week. I'm here with a good friend of mine and a longtime athlete that I've been training. She's been working with me for 4 years now. Her name is Zine Majid, and we're going to talk about Bitcoin and not necessarily just Bitcoin, but cryptocurrency in general. So I think this is going to be a good episode for a lot of people because at least from what I'm getting, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, you should invest in Bitcoin. You should do this. Have you done this and that and whatnot? And it seems very relevant to just about everybody. So I think getting what I consider to be an expert based on our 6 a.m. conversations in the gym on this episode to kind of fill me in and more importantly, fill everybody else in. Go over some cryptocurrency stuff, kind of learn about the financial world and just money in general. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and let Ms. Zine kind of, fill us in.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Not an expert at all, but but yeah, definitely appreciate you having me on here. So hello, everyone. My name is Zine Majid. I am a crypto enthusiast, and I'm a huge advocate of crypto education and financial literacy education for all. So quick disclaimer. I am currently an employee of Silvergate. If you don't know what Silvergate is, it is a crypto-friendly bank. It's actually one of the first banks in the world that decided to touch the cryptocurrency industry and help bank these Bitcoin companies. And so we are definitely one of the leading, financial institution innovators within the space. And everything that Corey and I discussed today is just going to be purely educational. I just want to make it known that none of this is, legal, financial, or investment advice. But do what you will with this information.
Awesome. And one thing I forgot to mention, one of the big reasons I'm having Zine on the podcast this morning is not just because, what she knows about cryptocurrency and, her role in the financial industry, but because of the person she is. I've seen her grow from, I think you started training with me at 20 years old, 21 years old?
I think 20. I think I was right on the cusp of 20.
Yeah, she's just a baby and, still pretty young. She's been training with me for 4 years now, mid-20s, but I've got to see and experience and kind of grow with Zine. I saw her, go from a young adult, kind of still late teen mentality to working her way up in the corporate world. And the way she's gotten there and the growth she's experienced over the last 4 years, from what I've seen, kind of goes hand in hand with my philosophy in life. Working hard, taking pride in ownership, basically taking from this life what you want, and I've seen her grow through fitness. I've seen her grow as a person, and I've seen her grow through the corporate world as a young woman. And she's, 24 years old right now. 25 years old. Sorry. She's turned 25 in February. 25 years old. And she's making her way up the corporate world in the financial industry very, very successfully. So I think, not just from the Bitcoin aspect or the cryptocurrency aspect, but there can be a lot to be learned from someone like her with the mindset she has. So lots of appreciation coming my way from her.
But I have to dish it right back. I have to say a lot of those lessons I learned were through, Corey's mentorship and training program. It's crazy. Like a lot of the lessons you learn within the gym, if you just apply those to real life, like you can really make strides. So yeah. Right back at you.
I love it. Yeah, likewise. Yeah, you can learn a lot about yourself and definitely take what you learn about yourself and apply that to your business or your relationship or whatnot. And you're doing a phenomenal job of doing that within your, not even your business, your career, but you almost treat it as if it is your business. Like I said, you do take that pride and ownership. So awesome stuff. But that being said, let's just get right into it. I think a lot of people are hearing about Bitcoin specifically, and I'm going to keep saying Bitcoin, but I'm really referring to cryptocurrency. I don't think a lot of people understand that cryptocurrency is the currency, and Bitcoin is just kind of a platform, I guess you would say, or like a name. But what exactly is cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so cryptocurrency, I would say, is kind of like the big subject headline that covers all of it, right? Like that's the umbrella. And then Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It's one token, but there's lots of tokens out there. There's the Ethereum token. I'm sure most of you have heard of, Dogecoin through like social media memes and whatnot. But it's really important to notice that, Bitcoin was the first ever cryptocurrency that came out there. Any other coin after that is called an altcoin, which is short for an alternative coin. So Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency that came into fruition.
Okay, so how exactly does cryptocurrency work? I mean, is it kind of like a bank account where, I mean, obviously, if I have $10,000 in my bank account, I don't actually have like something I can hold on to and put in a safe. But if I were to go to the bank, I could withdraw it and trade that for other items. I could trade that for merchandise or for goods, or I can just do like a digital transfer. Cryptocurrency is more strictly digital transfer, correct?
Yeah, and I think it's really important to touch on, what is money first before we actually get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, just to have that, underlying education. So, growing up, most of us are never taught in school, like what is money, or you're not taught like financial literacy, you're not taught how to do taxes. And I'd say, that's not a design flaw, right? That's kind of done by purpose. Um, and so when you think about it, like what is money? Well, essentially, the US dollar and a lot of other fiat currency, it's just paper, and coins are just metal. Um, and it is used as a medium of exchange, right? So I go to Corey and I say, you know what, I want to purchase training lessons, or, coaching advice. So he's going to give me the service of his education and training, and I'm going to hand him, a wad of cash, or I'm going to, transfer money over to him. So it's a medium of exchange. As well as it's a unit of account, right? So you look at your bank account and you see these numbers. It tells you how much money you have in your bank account. So that's really important to know. Money is just a tool that is used as a medium of exchange. And like I mentioned, it's literally just paper and coins. And since I don't know, the 70s or 80s, up until then, the US dollar was backed by gold. But then we got off the gold standard, and it is not, the US dollar is not backed by any commodity. However, it is backed by the people's trust, the trust that I can use that dollar to buy goods and services, or that I can save it in my savings account and use it for a future transaction. So that's essentially all money is, right? But we give it so much power by giving it our trust. But the opposite of that is true as well. If we stopped trusting it, if we stop trusting that it has this purchasing power or that it means so much to us, the value of that dollar is going to decrease. And a lot of people out there might be thinking, well, why would I not trust the US dollar, right? Like, it's so strong, it's been strong forever. Yeah, but like you could think of, back in 2008, all these big financial institutions like Lehman Brothers, they were making these risky loans, and essentially, it was too risky. They didn't calculate it. And then that's what caused the financial crisis of 2008, which was one of the worst economic depressions, or economic downturns since the Great Depression. So that's one example here in America. You look at Venezuela, where the government has printed so much money, where their currency is hyperinflated. They say that they don't really count the money when you're buying something, they weigh it because you have to give so much of it just for a piece of bread or something. So essentially, their currency has no value. Or you look at other countries where they have corrupt leaders, and the people are oppressed, and women don't have rights, where they can't open bank accounts under their own names. It has to be under their brother, or under their husband's name, and they don't have any rights to those assets. So I get it that in America our currency is fine, and we all have a lot of freedoms and privilege that you might not even realize. But if you look globally, money is a huge issue. There's a lot of people that say in Africa, where they don't have identification, they don't have access to banks, they don't have bank accounts, which literally cuts them off from global e-commerce and financial institutions. So I think it's really important to have that global mindset. I know we can be so stuck in our little bubble, but if you look at it from a global perspective, there are some huge systemic issues within money and, in the financial industry. Um, and so that's where, Bitcoin comes into play. So Bitcoin wasn't created overnight. In the 80s and the 90s, there was a group of cryptographers, also known as cyberpunks, and they pondered this concept of, why do we need a financial institution or a third party for us to send money to each other, right?
Hmm.
Look at us now. Corey, if I wanted to send you some money, right? I need a bank account. You need a bank account. We need a third party platform like Venmo or Zelle in order to make that transfer. However, with cash, if I have a $50 bill, right, I can hand it to you. We don't need a middleman. We don't need a third party, and no one needs to know about that transaction, right? It's completely private. Unless someone, like if your wife sees me handing you a $50 bill, she knows, okay, Zine just handed Corey a $50 bill, but she doesn't know the background of that transaction. Why did she hand him that? What is she buying? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it protects our privacy in that. Like no one needs to know that I just bought $50 worth of like cookies, like girl
Yeah.
cookies or something. But they know that that transaction took place. Um, so that's kind of the genesis or the idea that helped create Bitcoin was we want to protect our financial you know protect our financial privacy and privacy in general. um, we want to take that power back from the government, from these central banks and financial institutions, and bring it back to the people. um, so that's kind of the concept that led to the creation of Bitcoin. Some of the key differences, I'll take a step back. Jack Dorsey describes Bitcoin as the internet's money. So there is no actual physical bill or token or anything like that. It's all on the computer, which some people might find weird, but I'd ask you, like, how much cash do you have on you right now? Like most people, all their funds are in their bank account,
Yeah.
and they use Venmo and Zelle to send funds. You're not actually holding, cash anymore. You have a credit card, you just swipe, right? So I guess we're kind of stepping away from this physical world of needing fiat money, right? And everything's going digital. So
So would it be safe to say that Bitcoin is kind of like having cash that's only digital?
yeah,
Meaning, and I
exactly.
know
No,
that's
exactly. No.
okay.
People in the industry describe Bitcoin as digital cash.
Okay, that makes a lot
That's
more
the
sense
best
for
way.
me specifically, and,
Mhm.
and I like that idea because especially running a business, I don't think a lot of people understand how much it costs just to run a business. And I'll give you like a very small scale example. Let's say I'm selling T-shirts online, something that Alicia does do. Uh, we have to pay for the service to host our website and that's like a monthly fee for us to have our products on there for people to go and view and browse, and I think that's completely fine. It's like renting a storefront just online. you know um, that's cool, but then on top of that, every time somebody does buy something, there's a transaction charge. So it's like, why
Mhm.
as a business do I have to spend money, like my hard-earned money, just to give somebody or to receive money from somebody? Or if somebody makes a return and I have to refund them that money, I get a transaction processing fee on the way in and then on the way out, right? So that's like something very small that's bothered us in the business industry. Um, and there's really no way of avoiding it. And I think that many people who don't run businesses might not understand that. But let's say somebody who wants to sell or send their family member something on PayPal, and they forget to
Mhm.
click the family and friends option, and it charges them a transaction fee. It's like, why the
Yeah.
hell should I have to pay? And I get it that it's PayPal is created to process those transactions. So we should always
Mhm.
pay for the services that we receive. But why can't I just text you some money? Like, why can't I just send you some money as if I were giving you cash in person? And I do think a lot of that is for government regulation. The government
No,
does
and you
in
bring up
general.
a great point. That's another reason why Bitcoin was created, because of uh, essentially transaction fees, right? Like these banks, these financial institutions, they have every right to charge you as much as they want because they can. And that really screws over the people. Like, for a lot of people who are sending money overseas to their families, or for charity, a chunk of that is taken away in literally processing fees.
Yeah,
So
a big chunk sometimes.
why can't I send funds to Europe without this huge conversion fee, right? And Bitcoin solves that problem because it's essentially borderless. So one Bitcoin in the United States is the same Bitcoin as it is in Europe or Africa or Asia, unlike traditional fiat currencies where I have to go to a bank and convert my US dollar for a euro. And then that middleman's going to charge me, to make that conversion. And then another conversion to like send it, right?
Yeah.
To send it somewhere else. So that's another problem that Bitcoin solved.
That's very awesome, and I think I'm all for paying for services. Like as a business owner, I've come to learn that it costs money to make money. Anything you want to do, any service you want to provide, if you can't do it on your own, you need to pay somebody to help you do it, right? But I think we're in a time and place where I shouldn't have to outsource giving somebody money. Like
Mhm.
like I said, paying for the platform for me to host our merchandise and for people to come on and view it and put it in a shopping cart and like I can't do that. I'm not techie enough to like figure out the systems for it to track my orders and do shipping information and fulfillment and whatnot. But
Mhm.
I think I can send you a text message. I should be able to send you cash. It's that right there. I think is something that probably was a solution to a problem at one point when nobody
Yeah,
really
of
knew how to use the
course.
internet. But I don't think we're there anymore. I think people are well versed enough to be able to do something like send Bitcoin. So I think that's a huge uh, it incentivizes it for somebody like me who not necessarily I'm not a cheapskate at all, and I'm not trying to like nickel and dime every service that I use, but I think there's some things I should be paying for and some things I shouldn't. So that's awesome to hear. Now you mentioned Bitcoin's currency kind of being global everywhere, which I think is awesome too, because that could really solve a lot of problems for people in third world countries where they have more value now if they can get their hands on some Bitcoin. But my
Uh-huh.
only question to that is, uh, first of all, I don't know how it is nowadays because when I first tried to purchase Bitcoin, I think it was like in 2018 or or
Mhm.
maybe around that time. I don't recall exactly. It was before the huge spike. It was
Mhm.
before Bitcoin skyrocketed. And it's funny because I was on a website where you could purchase things online and it had an option for Bitcoin. And at this time, I had no idea what Bitcoin was. I don't think like you probably did, but most
Yeah.
people didn't. Like it wasn't trending. It wasn't
Mhm.
mainstream. It was probably something that was like, the financial
Niche.
gurus were like, oh, let's
Yeah.
start following this. So I was like, and it saved you like 20% off your order. And I was purchasing something like $200. I'm like, dude, if I could save $40, hell yeah, I'll do that. So I was trying to figure out how to purchase Bitcoin because I was like, I want to save $40. It's funny because in
Uh-huh.
hindsight, I'm like, dude, if I would have paid for that on Bitcoin, um, I would have saved $40 then. But if I would have just bought Bitcoin and kept it, I'd be like,
Lost millions of
yeah, yeah,
dollars.
I would have lost so much money. It's like the pizza guy who
Yeah.
bought some pizzas. I was trying to do the same thing. I was trying to save a few bucks on shipping and on my order for Bitcoin. But that being said, it was very challenging for me to like. I think I couldn't figure it out. I was like, go download this program, like upload this to your wallet. Like there were so many steps involved into actually purchasing Bitcoin to where I was like, it kind of made it seem very shady to me. Um, so I don't know if you know how to purchase it now, if it's a lot easier. Are there firms that you can go to in person, like Fidelity or TD Ameritrade or something like that, where you can be like, I want to purchase this much Bitcoin, and you can just hand them cash? Or is it still kind of like a not a necessarily, I don't want to say black market because I don't want it to seem taboo or illegal, but is it more of like you got to do it on your own and you got to figure it out type deal?
Yeah, no, and I'd like to point out that like 1 week in the crypto industry is equivalent to like a year, and like any other and any other industry, things are changing
Yeah,
so fast every day. Especially like you said, today Bitcoin has started to go mainstream, right? You're starting to hear about it more. You see it on social media. So it's definitely a lot more people are aware of Bitcoin now than they were just a few years ago. Um, and it's definitely easier. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say it's easier, but I think people are more aware of how to buy it. So I'd say, it is pretty simple. There's a few apps that I can suggest. So You just go into the app store on your phone and you can download any of the crypto exchanges that are out there. The most I don't want to say the most credible, but the most well known are Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken. Even there's even PayPal came into the space about a year or two ago. So if you wanted to purchase, if you're comfortable and you use PayPal a lot, you can go on there to buy Bitcoin. Literally, all you do is you go into your PayPal account, you type in like, I want to put in $100 worth, buy, it says buy, and then Bitcoin, and you press on that, and then boom, you have $100 worth of Bitcoin. So
So
that,
super easy now.
yeah, so it's essentially the same with any exchange out there. Um, so it's pretty simple. And then, like you were saying, you didn't really know much about it back then. But that's because we didn't really have this backing by mainstream and institutional investors. And that's really what helps the push. Once you have those institutional and accredited investors that are in it, that's when everyone like starts to hear about it and the hype comes. So in recent news, Fidelity launched their digital asset program. So they now are in the crypto space. They actually work with Silvergate in providing Bitcoin collateralized loans. So essentially, Silvergate will give you a US dollar loan, just like regular, but instead of holding a house as an asset or a car in possession, they hold Bitcoin as collateral. So that's really cool. So, PayPal, Fidelity, those are some huge names within the financial industry that are saying we support Bitcoin, and that's crazy. That's madness, right? Like
Yeah,
I thought that would happen, but yeah, once you have these financial giants backing it, like
it legitimizes it.
back, yeah, like
Okay, and there's obviously more money into it now to where there's probably better apps and better software to actually get your hands on it. Because like I said, the app that I was
definitely.
downloading, like it was sketchy. Like I was like, I don't know if I want to. I don't. I couldn't figure out how to put money into it,
Mhm.
but I didn't want to. Wish I
And
would have
that's
back in the day, but
Yeah, and that's really important to note. Like, with anything, there are scammers, there are people that are going to try to, take your money. And like, that's not to, and I don't say that for you to fear it. That's true with the US dollar, right? You could get some guy calling you saying, like, oh, you owe the IRS money, send us money here.
yeah,
But it's important to be aware of that's out there. So make sure you're only, using credible exchanges. When buying Bitcoin. And what we say in the crypto industry, not your keys, not your coin, is when you buy Bitcoin, yeah, you can definitely leave it on an exchange um, and hold your Bitcoin there. But it's sort of just like holding all of your cash at the bank. There's that chance that someone could go into the bank and steal all your money, right?
yeah,
So the same is true if you leave all of your Bitcoin on an exchange. There is that risk that someone could hack into it and steal your Bitcoin. And well, it's not like the US dollar where they could just print out more money. Like, it is what it is. And if you lose it, you lose it.
yeah.
Um, there are ways to transfer your Bitcoin onto a hard wallet, which essentially looks like a little flash drive, and to store it there. And you just plug it into your computer, you transfer your Bitcoin from an exchange onto the wallet, and then it's yours. But man, if you lose that, if you
That
lose the
that's
flash drive, then you're kind of screwed. So
yeah. That's what I was gonna ask. Like, what were to happen if like, um, I had it on a flash drive and then my daughter got a hold of it and like sucked on it or something and it just like destroyed it. Is that Bitcoin lost forever? There's no record saying like, hey, you still have this much worth because so it's not fully secure. There are still it's just like anything else in life with value, you can still lose it.
yeah, so like the whole thing with Bitcoin is allowing people to be their own bank. Um,
Okay.
so that's sort of the premise of it. So then I have complete control over the Bitcoin that's on my flash drive, essentially acting as your own bank. So it is your responsibility to keep it safe, to make sure your daughter doesn't throw it in the pool or something.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? So risk and reward, right?
So it's basically like this though, like if you have 10 Bitcoin on your little flash drive and you put it in a safe, and then that 10 Bitcoin, let's say its value is the ratio is 1 to 1, it's worth $10. And then it has like one of those jumps where it jumps up 58,000. And now that $10 is worth 580,000.
Mhm.
You pull that flash drive out, you put it back in your computer, and it's still going to say 10 Bitcoin, but the value of that 10 BTC is 580,000 USD, right?
Yeah, and then you could, I mean, just like anything, then you can link it to your exchange and you can sell it, and gain that profit or keep it, whatever. But
That's
yeah,
remarkable.
that's how it works.
So
Mhm.
if you, let's say I do have this much Bitcoin and I can purchase things online with Bitcoin. Like I don't have to convert it to US dollars and then buy it with cash. I can
Mhm.
purchase it with Bitcoin. Is that something, and I understand that it's not so much regulated by the government. Is that something that's going to be taxed like normal? Is it going to be something that, um, let's say my Bitcoin value skyrockets, am I going to have to pay income taxes on that? Or is that completely like free from any government control?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Honestly, don't really know.
Hard to say right now.
Hard to say. This is such a new concept. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is just now kind of getting mainstream. And it was created to take power away from the government, right?
I
And
love
look,
it.
I would like that.
Yeah.
But I think they recognize that this is here to stay, and they can't stop it because the network is decentralized. They can't just go to one computer or one person and say shut this shit down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole point of the network to be decentralized is to fight against that. So no government can come in and really stop it. But they can. So instead of like fearing it, they at this point they sort of have to embrace it. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, here it is. It's here to stay. Well, we have to work with it.
You
So
can't beat them, join them.
exactly. And nothing is black and white right now. Everything is in a gray area. Are some cryptocurrencies considered securities? Are they not? That's why you see some of these SEC charges and accusations, because we're all just trying to figure it out right now,
Yeah.
and that's not to say that Bitcoin is shady or they're trying to, fly under any laws or regulations. It's just there is no guidance, but that has been coming out over the past few years. So there is more structure to it, and we're just gonna see where it goes from here. That's kind of like the exciting part. It's like we're all building, we're all anticipating, and we're just seeing what comes of it. So
That's pretty fascinating. So now is there like a CEO or like an owner of Bitcoin, or is it just a currency that everybody can use? Like whoever invented Bitcoin or whoever started it, like what is their role with the whole thing? Do they just have as
that's
much
a
Bitcoin
great
as they want?
story.
Like, let's hear it.
So I think I mentioned earlier, in the podcast that Bitcoin was not created overnight. There was a group of cryptographers known as cyberpunks, that were pondering these ideas, creating these algorithms, um, and one person that goes by the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto. Their identity is still sealed. No one knows if it is a male or a female or if it's a group of people. But Satoshi Nakamoto essentially grabbed all of these different ideas from different cryptographers and put them together to create Bitcoin. Um, and so, to this day, no one knows who Satoshi is. Which is pretty rad. And it's crazy that in this digital era of everyone knows everything about each other and what we're doing all the time, that no one can find out this person's identity.
Yeah.
But so that's what makes Bitcoin cool, right? It's like, who is this person? How did they create it? Why wouldn't they want some glory in it?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, with money comes problems, so I could see why they might want to keep their identity
for sure.
anonymous.
Essentially, because it's kind of like it's not an anti-government, but it's like taking that power back from the government and giving it to the people. Which I mean,
It's like a cyber revolution.
yeah,
I love it.
seriously, like a financial revolution. That's exactly what it is.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about, and I really like the fact that you brought up money being a tool. And that's exactly how I look at it. Kind of like what we talk about with weight loss. The scale, the number on the scale when you're trying to lose weight is really just data for you to use, and then that determine your actions going forward. And
Mhm.
when it comes to money, though, well, kind of with the scale too, there's a lot of emotions attached. And I don't want to like bring anybody down or stereotype anybody, but it's typically the people, in my opinion, who have never really had much money or don't really understand money that kind of have like this hatred towards it, or this hatred towards people who either understand money or have a lot of money or use it as a tool or invest and grow their wealth. There's a lot of pushback. And just think about how many people in this country would probably prefer that we have a socialist government. That way everything's fair. There's a lot of pushback when it comes to money, right? Is Bitcoin kind of receiving that same criticism at all, or like are there people who hate Bitcoin because it's unfair and because it's allowing people to have more power rather than the government? Like how does it work with that, with
Yeah,
crypto?
it's really interesting to see some of these very sophisticated investors, high public officials who really hate Bitcoin and hate the idea of it. And they think it's a Ponzi scheme. They think it's a get quick rich kind of, whatever. Um, and I just challenge those people because I think they fully don't understand Bitcoin. So like I was saying, in America, our system is really great. We don't really have as much issues with our monetary policy as other countries do, right? So in America, Bitcoin is viewed as sort of as an asset class and an investment vehicle, right? People are trading it to make a profit. People are holding it, hoping that it goes up in value one day. But like I said, in other countries that are really struggling with either their governments are corrupt or their money is not worth shit, honestly. Bitcoin is a saving grace. It's a blessing. It can be used as currency. It can help connect them globally, and bring them into this global e-commerce world that we have now. So it can be used for humanitarian aspects. There's certain areas in China, and Alex Gladstein did a really good report on this, where the Chinese government is essentially, we're all being tracked by our phones, right? But I guess there was something like a protest, right? And everyone had to, to get on this bus to go to the protest, and they swipe their card. And so the government has access to see exactly who was there at what time. And those people ended up going to jail, right? But if you could use another form of payment to sort of, it's like pseudo anonymous, right? So like you can sort of get information and sort of not. So if they were able to pay with Bitcoin, their identity could have been sealed to a certain extent, and that wouldn't have happened. So Bitcoin is used as a saving grace for currency, for humanitarian aspects, and it's essentially like a human rights tool. So like I get it, big American investors don't really believe in it, but I think they don't fully understand the power of it. And even if they do, I think that's what they fear.
They're probably looking at it more so like just strictly from the money aspect too, right? Like they're not
Exactly.
looking at the humanitarian relief that it could provide that you just spoke about. They're
Mhm.
they're thinking, hey, this is probably going to crash soon, or they don't trust it, and that they're investors. A lot of times
Exactly.
investors or very wealthy people are kind of out of touch with like the small man and what's going on in the small man's world. But that actually is kind of why I was asking you earlier about how to get Bitcoin, because like I said, it was very difficult for me in the past, and we kind of took a turn to the left a little bit there. But I love the idea that it can help people in third world countries. And I think that
Mhm.
that's phenomenal. I think that the people should have the power regardless of where you're at in the world. But it and I don't know much about it. So, this is just an assumption I'm creating based on the information I'm gathering and whatnot. Uh,
Mhm.
I still, how valid of a solution is this to these people? Because, you even mentioned earlier that people in Africa they don't know how to get identification. Like the most simplest of technological matters to them are either
I challenge. I wouldn't say that they don't know how to get identification. They don't have institutions in place
okay,
to be able to issue that.
okay, yeah,
Like a systemic institutional problem. Um, and yeah, like right now in America, it's not really viewed as a currency, but it is going to help us when inflation comes, because the US dollar, the government has the power to print it as much as they want, right? And
yes,
during coronavirus, this was a perfect example. So many people were unemployed, and we needed to be able to provide stimulus checks. We needed to provide unemployment to those who really needed it. And that's totally great. And I feel like if they're shutting shit down, they need to help out the people to still pay
Yeah,
bills, right?
absolutely.
But the repercussion of that is the government needed to print money, and a lot of it, right?
Devaluing it.
With that comes inflation, because they're just printing it, and if there's so much out there, the value and the purchasing power of the US dollar is going to decrease, which means inflation is coming.
Yeah.
So I'd argue that right now it's not viewed as a currency in America, but if we do get to that point, and which all currencies have, and I don't see the US dollar being any different, one day, who knows when that'll be? Maybe it'll be way later, maybe it's sooner than we think. The dollar is going to inflate, and Bitcoin will be our saving grace.
Absolutely. And whether people consider it a currency or not, people are balling now because of it. So it's doing something, right?
Yeah, haters gonna hate.
But okay, and yeah, I didn't mean to say that they don't know how to. Like I said, I'm the ignorant one in this conversation, and I'm going based on assumptions. But I think what you said actually kind of validates my point a little more, in that they don't have the institutions over there. They don't have the support and the, I'll say, knowledge to a certain degree. Maybe they don't have access to internet. Maybe they don't. Uh, with that being said, though, how does somebody in a third world country get their hands on Bitcoin, especially if they don't have currency themselves? So that's what I was asking, is like, it sounds like a great solution to a lot of people's problems, but in my opinion, even obtaining it, or, getting the Bitcoin value themselves in its own right could be a problem.
Well,
Right.
so I think the beauty of Bitcoin is that it's all on the internet, right? So you don't need a bank account. All you need is access to the internet in a computer.
Well,
But also in Africa, what they do is, and I forgot the app, but they've built out a really good infrastructure through mobile phones. So they have this mobile phone company, and they have these like huge towers everywhere where people can access their internet on that mobile phone, which is pretty, from what I've heard, is, a lot of people have it, and that's how they're building that out. So they can get access to the internet through an app on their phone. I don't quote me on this. I don't know all the technical aspects of it, but I have heard that, that's the infrastructure that they use and that they're building out, and that it's worked so far. So actually, in Africa, Bitcoin is blowing up, and there's a lot of movement out there, right? And what we're trying to do is, bring them into our markets and whatnot. And so this is one way that we do that. So they actually, a lot of, well, I actually don't want to say a lot, but more than we think, of people in Africa have access to Bitcoin.
okay. And you mentioned not needing a bank account, or not needing, the financial means online, but how do you get Bitcoin if you don't have a online bank account? Because you still have to purchase it with whatever currency you have, right? So let's say somebody in Africa is on their cell phone, they're on the internet, but they don't have a bank, they don't have currency at all. They live in a village, and they don't have an online banking system. Like how would somebody like that go about getting Bitcoin? And then once they do, how would they really go about using it? Because sure, they could probably go on Amazon and order things, but like on the day-to-day basis, paying their rent, or paying whatever fees they have to pay to get whatever it is that they're the trading in the village, like, are the other villagers going to have, what I'm saying? Like, how does that all kind of work? And you may not know the answer to that, but that's what I'm getting at when I say that there might be, it sounds like a great solution, but it may be like inaccessible for some people who are really in like the third world countries, right?
Well, I think it's funny because as Americans, we view things totally different, right?
Yeah,
We only have certain access to like what we see on social media or presented by the news. So I think our ideas of these countries are kind of diluted, and they just have this we have a fuzzy lens on it, right?
for
Um,
sure.
so I um, there are parts of Africa that are very modern, and I think you're only touching on probably a small percentage of people that live in like these huts and
The
or
anomalies.
like tribal
Yeah.
community, right? But I think if we take that lens off and we look into it, there's a lot of modern infrastructure. It's more modern or more Western than we think.
Yeah.
So there are, places that sort of act like as an OTC desk where you go there and you say, I want to buy Bitcoin and they'll help you buy it. So I think we can all do better about, learning about other countries and figuring out what is this place actually like and not just what I see
Yeah.
presented or projected on the news. So yeah, and like, I mean, I haven't been there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know everything but that's just my 2 cents, I guess.
No, no, and I absolutely love it because that goes like completely in line with how I view most issues that people are discussing online. And I just did it myself. It was more out of curiosity. I'm not going to go like
Mhm.
fighting for the little man in the village in Africa because,
Yeah.
like you said, it's kind of an anomaly. Meaning, small percentage of people probably have that problem. The majority
Mhm.
can benefit from it, and I think there's issues that are talked about all day, every day that kind of fit hand in hand with that.
Mhm.
People complaining about the millionaire who inherited or the billionaire who inherited their money. When in fact most billionaires are self-made to a certain extent, but everybody wants to focus on like that one or two that's kind of doesn't fit in the general population of whatever we're discussing. So uh,
Mhm.
I agree with you, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's that I'm well traveled. I've been to a lot of places, and that's also something I like to bring to light when I'm talking to people about these conversations about different types of government and different money in general. It's like, have you ever been
Mhm.
to some of these countries? 'Cause there's definitely a
Yeah.
lot you can learn, and I mean that's why we have you on here, because like I said, I can make assumptions about Bitcoin and how hard it is or how much of a problem it's going to solve for somebody, but in the grand
Mhm.
scheme of things, I don't know anything about it. So um,
Yeah, and no, and that's what I love that you brought me on here for, is because Bitcoin is very new. It is very it can be intimidating. It can be scary because it challenges the status quo. It challenges everything you ever thought about, right? Like
yeah,
money is this dollar and it's this plastic credit card that I used to swipe, and this totally redefines that. It is a revolution. It's sort of like when the internet first came out, right? There's this quote out there, and I don't remember who said it, but he said, "No one questions the internet anymore. No one asks if it's real." Um,
it's part
but
of life.
exactly, but people still ask if cryptocurrency is real and if it's legit. And he just said that means we're just still in the beginning stages, right?
Yeah,
I truly believe that this is the future of finance, and this is how we're going to pay for things. And it might, for some people, it might not be Bitcoin. It might be some sort of other cryptocurrency out there. But there's also a thing called stable coins, which I really want to shed light on. So stable coins essentially leverage all of the technology of a cryptocurrency where it's still online. One coin in America is going to be the same coin in Europe. It's going to be easy to transfer. You won't need a centralized institution or a bank in order to send and receive it. So it leverages all of the positives and the technology of cryptocurrency. However, that coin is going to be backed by $1. So that's what solves the issue of the volatility in prices right now, right? People in America aren't going to be using Bitcoin to buy a pizza anymore because one day
yeah,
$10,000 and one day it's $56,000, right? And then it's like, oh shit, I just paid $40,000 for a slice of pizza. Like that's ridiculous. However, I can send you a stable coin. Some of the stable coins out there are USDC or Tether and whatnot, or the Paxos dollar. But what that does is I can send you, a stable coin, and I know that it's backed by US dollars, so um, it's not going to have that volatility risk to it. Uh,
okay.
so I really truly believe, like, either Bitcoin or some stable coin that's out there is going to be what we use as currency in the future.
Gotcha. So when you say it's backed by a dollar, does that mean that it's going to always hold the value of $1? So if the
Exactly.
value goes up or down, the stable coin kind of goes with it.
I believe so, but
Okay. So what would be the incentive for having stablecoin as to opposed to just having an online banking system? Because technically that's what our online banking system is right now. It's like a digital number that represents
Mhm.
a US dollar, right? Um,
Exactly. But the issue with that, so, our banking system hasn't worked, right? And why fix it if it's not broken? However, if you notice, if I send you a wire, I can take hours or days for you to receive those funds, right? Before you can actually use it.
yeah.
And it gets applied to your bank account. But leveraging this new technology, if I send you a stable coin, you're going to receive it near instantaneously. So that's the incentive for stable coins. It's not like completely changing currency. It's just upgrading our systems that we already have to meet our modern day world. You know, we want things fast paced. We want instant gratification, and every other industry has really had to step up their game in order to meet up with new technology. However, the financial system really hasn't. It's pretty much our standard legacy system that we've had since like the 80s. And they didn't need to change it because there was nothing better. But now, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, these financial technology or fintech companies are saying, no, like we have all this new technology that can make these systems better. Why not do it? So now you have these, fintech companies that are now getting banking licenses and are upgrading their systems, and it's sleek, it's sexy, it's fast, and now these huge, financial institutions such as Fidelity, the Chases of the world, the Bank of Americas, they're going to be left behind, and they're noticing that, which is why you see them coming in. JP Morgan Chase came out with their own coin, and they're starting their own like digital asset little sector. Fidelity Digital Assets came into the game. So you're going to slowly start seeing these huge names come in there, because if they don't, they're literally going to be left behind. So
Yeah, and that's kind of how our country's always operated. Is we've always kind of always progressive. We're always coming out with new technology. We're always coming out with like upgrading systems and making things more convenient. I mean, look at Amazon now, right? Started as an online bookstore. Now you can get anything, and you can get some things same day shipping. So I think that kind of should give some people who are on the fence about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general a little confidence in a sense. Because anytime our country goes through big change, whether it be the internet being created, or new forms of doing things online as opposed to in person, at first there's always a lot of pushback, there's always a lot of skepticism, people are kind of afraid of it because it's new. But that's
yeah.
anytime we experience change in life, whether it's individual change or like systemic change, tends to make people uncomfortable at first, but then we look back on it and be like, okay, this is our normal life right now. The internet is not weird. Like, yeah, sure, there's bad parts about it, but I think most people on the planet right now would be like, life would be worse if we didn't have internet. It's a good
Yeah, it
thing,
gives you
right?
access to information. It allows you to connect with people. It's just a platform, and it can be used whether good or bad depending on your intentions. And
Like
I'd say
anything else, though.
with anything, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say the same is true for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Um, yeah, I mean, like, hey, I didn't hear about Bitcoin, and I was like, heck yeah, I went to a presentation and I learned about it, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this is
Yeah.
so weird, but
Yeah.
fascinating. And then I, worked with the guy who gave that presentation, and he pretty much just shed his knowledge on me. And I was like, dude, this is gonna change the world. This is amazing and insane. Um, and even though I was working in the Bitcoin world, and at the leading financial institution that really helped supported this ecosystem, I was skeptical of it. I didn't buy my Bitcoin. Now that I look back, I'm like, damn, I should have bought it so much.
Yeah.
But like, just like everyone else, I didn't understand it. I thought it was weird. I was afraid of it. I don't know why when I was buying my first Bitcoin, I had anxiety, just because I was like, I'm uploading this app that I don't know about,
Hmm.
and this is weird. Um, and then, I just got out, right? Just like anything, I just pulled the band-aid and I did it. And then I was like, cool. And then I see, I start learning more about it. I have a better understanding of it. I'm watching the news. I'm seeing how the US government is now putting in regulations and are working with crypto companies. And I'm like, okay, this thing is legit. This is the future. And like, I'm just excited to be a part of it. And like, for any listeners that are out there who think like, oh, it's too late, I missed it. And, I'd say that we're still in the beginning stages of it, right? It has just now gone mainstream. So don't think that you've missed out. I'd really encourage everyone to just put $10 worth of that you have in Bitcoin, because you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. You don't have to pay 56,000 for one Bitcoin. You know what I mean? You can buy a fraction of it, and I just say, just try it out. Put $10 in, right? Or five, whatever. It's like a cup of coffee. So
Yeah, well, I think what they think they missed out on is like that initial surge, which I say initial, but there's been a few surges. Like I remember when it went up to, I mean, you were talking about it in our training sessions, it went up to 10,000. We're like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin's at 10,000. And then like a couple weeks later, it was at 19,000. And I
yeah,
remember you were like freaking out. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Bitcoin's at 19,000 now. And now it's at damn near 60,000. So, um, it's growing, like it's continuing. It's like anything where it starts down here and it might have its ups and downs, but it's kind of continuing
that's like weight
that
loss, right? Like you lose a few
100%.
pounds, you gain, and then
Yes.
but overall, like you've lost like what, like 200 pounds or
Yeah.
something.
And in the money sector
Um,
overall, you've built, right? So I think that's what they're
exactly.
fearing, is like that they missed out on that initial surge. But would you encourage people to not necessarily go into Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency for that matter for like a quick get rich plan? Or would you more so encourage people to kind of look at it as like any other investment where it's a long game?
I mean, that really just depends on the person and what type of investor they are, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't day trade. Like, let me tell you, that gives me so much anxiety. Like, I cannot.
Yeah.
I'm in it for the long run. So, like, every now, here and there, I'll put in a few bucks in, and I just hold, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to see where it goes. And that's true with any other like investment that you do. You can do a long run, right? Um, but I know a bunch of people who are day traders, and they love that shit, right? They love the price volatility, and
Yeah.
some people have made a lot of money doing that. And on the flip side, some people have lost a lot of money doing that. So I think it's really important with any investment to only invest what you're willing to lose. I say that cryptocurrency is extremely volatile. So just be aware of that. And if you're a holder, stay strong.
Yeah.
Don't let your emotions really play into it. Um, and yeah, and to really invest in things that you truly understand. I mean, like I'd say get your feet wet, right? Just put in $10, but don't be putting your life savings into like a Dogecoin or something, or Bitcoin for that matter, because you don't know what can happen, and that would just really suck to lose all of your money. But that's true for any investment, right? You wouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket, right? They all
Absolutely.
suffice. So put some here, put some there, and
Learn to use it as a
see
tool.
what happens.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that mindset. I think that the average person probably doesn't know much about Bitcoin. They just think they missed that surge that I was talking about. They're like, oh my gosh, if I put $10 in years ago, I'd be a millionaire right now. And
But
that's
then
what
imagine
they
what if you
understand.
put $10 in now and then see in the future. So
Exactly. But I think you nailed it when you said that the best thing to do is just understand it a little bit. Don't you can't really look at it as like, oh, it's a trend I got to hop on because I
mhm.
missed the first wave. Maybe I can hit the second wave. It's something where, at the very least, you should just be interested in using the cryptocurrency as your new form of currency. Not necessarily like, oh, I just want to get rich off this in the next couple months, but oh, I like what Bitcoin offers as far as privacy. I like what they offer as far as like freedom and kind of hands off with the government. So I'm going to use it for that. And then if I grow it into something that's even better.
For
Um,
sure. Mhm.
so that being said, like, are a lot of people, do people not use Bitcoin as currency right now? Is it more of an investment tool?
America, yeah, it's
People aren't spending it, right?
um I mean, there are some places that accept Bitcoin as a form of payment, and I have seen people pay things in Bitcoin. Um, but for the most part, the people that I know and that I talk to either hold it, and view it as an asset class,
Mhm.
or they day trade and they make a profit off of it that way. So.
Gotcha. So, I got a couple more questions, and more so, I want to address some things that could just help the common man like myself, who I'm not a
Mhm.
financial guru or person at all. Like I understand money in the business aspect, but it's not my priority. It's not something that I'm focused on, or it's not something that like I do as a hobby or have too much passion about, right? But I'm
Mhm.
still interested in in investing in it because I think that it's good to jump on things when they're fairly new.
Mhm.
Because like just like with anything, TikTok, YouTubers, there's a lot of people who started spending a lot of time investing themselves into that because they enjoyed it, and then they became rich off it. They became, and I don't want to say rich as in like the money alone, but it's become their
Mhm.
career. Like they've used it as a platform to just
For
elevate their
sure.
life. And I see Bitcoin kind of as that same thing, but there's a lot of beginners like me. There's a lot of people who don't really quite understand it. So, uh, you mentioned cryptocurrencies being volatile. And I know most things you're not going to be able to give like oh, do this and not this answer just due to liability
Mhm.
purposes, but what are some of the more trusted and less volatile cryptocurrencies as compared to like the more volatile and less trusted?
Um, Great question. I'd say all cryptocurrencies are pretty volatile right now, because there's so much speculation. So it's hard for me to say this coin is less volatile than this coin because they're all volatile right now.
Yeah.
But I would say that Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency created, and it has an actual use case, not only just for um, investing, but it truly can be used as a currency. Its network is really strong. Um, it can be used for humanitarian aspects. Um, so I think there's a lot of use cases for Bitcoin, as well as Ethereum is gaining a lot of attraction recently as well. So it's another cryptocurrency built on the Ethereum network and blockchain, and I'd say those two are very well known and very pretty established, and a lot of people really support that. You know, I'm really into memes. I'm really into meme culture and the internet and Reddit and Wall Street bets and all that stuff. So I see Dogecoin a lot out there. I see a lot of memes about it, right? And like, although I love it because I'm part of the meme community, um, I just don't really see the utility of it. And the fact that there is an unlimited supply of Dogecoin just kind of worries me a little bit because that's the same as the US dollar, right? If
Mhm.
you make an unlimited supply, the value is going to go down. And essentially that's inflation, right? Um, so I think that's one of the biggest problems I have with Dogecoin, and why a lot of, very uh, intense Bitcoin supporters, also known as Bitcoin maximalists, kind of point their finger at it and say like, this is a joke. This is going to like ruin cryptocurrency's reputation. People are going to use this as a scapegoat. Um, and I say yes and no, right? I'm a very moderate person. I like to be devil's advocate, and I can see both sides. So yes, I see the fact that like some of these people who really worked hard to build the Bitcoin infrastructure could be upset because now, right, there's all these memes about it. People are talking about it. They call it dog money. Um, so it's kind of tainting cryptocurrency a little bit in that aspect. Um, and the Bitcoin maximalists are like, well, what are you going to use this for, right? Like, what's the utility behind it? How is this going to change the world, and then you see these influencers, the Elon Musks of the world, the Mark Cubans, who are saying, oh no, like this is legit. This is going to be awesome. They're backing it, right? But we don't really truly know their intentions. Are they doing it to build up hype so then they can sell it and gain a profit off of it, using their network effect, using their influence? Or do they truly believe it? I don't know. None of us do unless we're Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say Bitcoin is definitely legit in my opinion, and a lot of people have opinions in the industry. Um, but I am like a millennial that likes memes and stuff. So like, yeah, I invested a little bit of Dogecoin because I think it's funny. Do I think it's going to change the world? No, but also like, who knows what can happen, right? Like the possibilities are endless with the internet. So like, right there was a meme that said, "Whoever controls the memes controls the world."
It's true.
I don't want to come on here and say like Dogecoin is shit and like it's not going to do anything because one day, I don't know, like what if it is worth millions of dollars and like people are actually trading it and using it as like a sub currency? Who
Yeah.
am I to say, So like um as a millennial, as a young professional that's been in the industry for 5 years, um I'd say Bitcoin and like Ether are like really legit. And then like I have fun with Dogecoin because like why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Kind of have an open mind about things. Just in life in general. I think that's why you can attribute or what you can attribute a lot of your success to is
Mhm.
having that open mind. It's like you don't know all the answers, but you're willing to kind of try things out. And I think it's important to kind of have fun with it, make it
Yeah.
a hobby or be passionate about it, not just try to get rich quick. Uh, again,
Well,
with
and that's
with
one of
anything
the
in
things,
life.
like, yeah, like a lot of these, really successful people in the fintech community, who are really talking shit about Dogecoin and are like just like, crapping all over it. And I challenge them and I say, hey, this is what the millennials are talking about. This is what's getting these new young retail investors in the financial space, in the investment game.
Yeah,
It's not fair to just the billionaire boys have access to the stock market and they're the ones that are making all the money. It's like there was a lack of education, there was a lack of interest in this space, and you see that changing now. And a really good example is the GameStop,
yeah,
right?
GameStop.
Stock, right? Like these institutional investors were squeezing it and short selling it, right? And the meme and Reddit community came together and they said, "Fuck that," And so they all just bought it and helped support it, and it made the price go up like crazy. And then you have these like legitimate hedge funds, these legitimate financial institutions that like essentially went bankrupt because of it. And then, everyone's all freaking out. And it's like, that's power.
That's power to the people.
That's power to the people. A group of people came together and they said, you are not going to screw with our video game place.
Yeah,
Um,
I love it.
Saying like these financial institutions needed to get bailed out because they literally went bankrupt. And like, that's why when these credible people in the space talk shit on Dogecoin, I'm like, part of me is like, yeah, I could see that. I could see why it's kind of shitty. But part of me is like, dude, there is a revolution coming, and it's
Hmm.
not burning down buildings. It's in the financial game, which is where all the money, where all the power is at. And so, like, I don't know. Who knows what can happen when you get a bunch of people who really believe in a cause, whether it's silly or serious. That's where real change happens. So
Absolutely.
really sitting back and watching it happen, and it's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
an interesting stuff for sure. Would you say that somebody like I know a lot of people have this like mindset that if they weren't born with money or if they don't have money, like that they don't have power or they can't accomplish things or they're just kind of like I'm screwed because I didn't get set up for success. I think that's more of a mindset thing. But uh, is it something that somebody with little money or power can be successful with? Like, can somebody who doesn't have much start investing into Bitcoin and can they create something out of it?
Yeah, so that's a great point, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because I'm a daughter of immigrants, right? My parents fled war to come to America, and to build their life here, and they've seen some shit and they've had a hard life, right? And their whole existence has really been in survival mode. It's to make enough to break even to support their family. And the hustle is great, right? Like both my parents worked two jobs and never complained, right? Because what they were doing was for their family. And so I could look at it and I could look at someone else who had a college fund growing up, whose parents had invested for them, and they were all set up and they didn't have to work, and all they focused on was school, right? I could look at them and I could hate them and I could curse them and I could play the victim card and say that's unfair. And then be like, well, man, I had a job since I was 15. I grinded my way through, I put myself through college. I'm still going through college, and I can use that as an excuse. But I decided not to, because I don't want to get to where I am playing the victim card. I want to show people like, no, I learned my shit and I worked my ass off to get to where I am. And so no one can point fingers and be like, she only got to where she is because she's playing the diversity card, or she's a female in tech and they need more females and whatever. Like, no, man, like I got to where I am because I stayed up late at night reading, watching YouTube videos, taking notes, and working my ass off during the day. And so like, I think there's a lot of hype in investing right now, but I think the most important thing for millennials, people of color, anyone who like wasn't taught financial literacy growing up, the most important thing to do right now is to educate yourself. I have this book, actually it's sitting right here. It's called The Everything Guide to Investing in Your 20s and 30s. And it starts off with the basics. Do you know what money is and how it can be used? Do you have a budget in place? Do you track your monthly spending? Do you know how much you actually make within a month? It's understanding the basics and being like an accountant for yourself, because no one is going to do that for you. No, everyone has their own problems. No one gives a shit about you. Like,
Yeah.
like for reals. So like you need to learn the basics. You need to learn what a money market account is. You need to understand what interest rates are and how that actually affects your daily life, right? You could say like, oh, that's just government stuff and that doesn't apply to me. Hell yeah, it applies to you. Interest rates affects like when you get out a loan or a mortgage or whatever and you have to pay that back. Like, did you take out a student loan? Do you understand what your interest rates are and how long you have to pay that for? And like, before you even talk about investing, one, you need to educate yourself and learn the lingo and the jargon of finance. Two, you need to put yourself in check. You need to create yourself a budget. You need to build up your savings account because you never know what can happen. And then once you have a savings account and it's, you build up the treasure chest and you feel a little comfortable, no one's saying you have to invest $1,000 or however much. Like, try $100, right? Get an account at Fidelity or any other, like TD Ameritrade or whatever. Start off with 50 or $100, right? But low risk, low reward, high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
So I think right now there's a lot of hype about investing, but I'd say, there needs to be hype in the underlying education of the financial institution and the game of it.
Yeah.
It is a game. And like you can, right? They don't teach you about taxes in school. That's not a design flaw. They do that by purpose, right? Big institutions, the government, they benefit off of us not knowing and not understanding how to use these tax breaks and use these tax rules for our advantage. So it's your job as a citizen and as a worker, as a person, and as a person who's trying to support yourself and or your family, like you can't afford not to know this shit.
Yeah.
So that's why I really advocate financial literacy and financial education. Because it's not always about how much you make, it's about how much you can save and how much you can make your money work for you. Because if you're only working like a labor intensive job and you're only getting paid for your labor, you're literally going to work till you die.
Absolutely.
So like, you need to be able to make money while you're sleeping. And yes, that is through investing and whatnot, but like you need to understand the basics before you can get there.
Yeah. And I think that honestly applies to everything in life, whether it be fitness. I always compare things to fitness because that's what I know the most. That's where I excel. That's my profession and my expertise. But anything in life is like, if you want to grow or if you want to find success anywhere, school, with your business or working at a corporate job, playing a sport, you need to take whatever like baseline you have right now where you're at and just try to work up to the next level. And I think too many people are like hyper focused on getting rich or getting the six pack or working less and making more. Like they're focusing on an end goal, which really isn't even an end goal, but
Mhm.
they're trying to, jump so many steps. And I kind of tell people the same thing in fitness is like before worrying about like doing performance workouts or cutting weight or getting on this diet, like learn how much water you should be drinking, like learn how
Mhm.
your body should move, because where you're at
Yeah.
right now, that's the next step. And the only way to get upstairs efficiently is to take that each step at a time. You don't just jump from the bottom to the top. So I think that's important for people to understand when it comes to money. I just think people have this skewed perception of money. They think people were
Mhm.
born with it, or people were inherited it, people got lucky. And I love that you brought up your story because and the way my perspective on people who weren't born into, or people who were born with disadvantages, and people might talk shit on me for saying this or hate me for saying this, because I wasn't born with any crazy disadvantages. I'd say I grew up like an average lifestyle. I think that people who were born with those disadvantages actually have an advantage. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody like you learned how to work hard from your parents' example they set. They didn't
Mhm.
have a choice. They weren't born in America with the privileges that we have and the platform we have.
Mhm.
You had to develop, you and your family have developed habits over years of working with what you had, which is probably small compared to the average person born in America. So
Mhm.
you're gonna work harder. You've created these habits over time because of your circumstances. Whereas somebody who is
Exactly.
born in America, their habits are created based on what circumstances they had. So if they were able to just be born into an average life and live an average life, that's probably what they're going to live the rest of their life. And they're going to complain about those who were lucky or more fortunate. And the reason I feel that way is, like I said, not because I was born in a third world country or because I had to overcome some crazy adversity. It's because the
Mhm.
people who have beaten me or who have outworked me or outshined me were. You know what I'm saying? I've seen that power from like a loser's perspective. I've
Mhm.
seen what happens in the military when somebody who has less natural confidence, I don't say natural, but like less confidence in the beginning of our careers, or
Mhm.
less like technical ability, or less just natural ability to excel at things. I've seen them pass me up in promotions because I got comfortable. This is, I'm doing the average job, which is good enough to kind of keep on moving up. Whereas they're in the back, maybe getting made fun of at first, but they're
Mhm.
working their freaking asses off. You know what I'm saying? And then guess what? One day I'm calling them sir, when I was joking about them before because I was freaking comfortable. So I
Yeah.
think that people born with that disadvantage, it's not a disadvantage at all. You know what I'm saying? And I really
It's all
appreciate that
about
about
perspective,
everything is.
and I'm not gonna lie, like, growing up, it was a struggle, and anything that I wanted, like, I had to work for to get money to pay for it myself, because there
Yeah,
wasn't extra cash laying around for that
yeah,
kind of shit. So, like, and now that I'm older and I look back and I reflect, I'm like, thank God, because what I inherited from my parents was like this hustle mentality, this work hard, grind hard, the tough lesson that, like, no one is just going to give you anything. If you want it, you have to earn it. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I grew up in Forest Ranch, Rancho Bernardo, which is a predominantly like white, middle class to high class, depending on the little niche neighborhood that you live in. And so a lot of my peers, they were set up for success already, but they didn't have to work for it. So it was just kind of like this is the norm, But then you get into what am I trying to say? Like the employment world, right? Um, and then you're hit with reality
yeah,
that no one's going to give you a promotion just because you're there.
yeah,
No one's going to give you extra commission or a job title or whatever. You really have to, and it's a reality check. And I think this is Simon Sinek says is the best. Like, millennials, you know everyone talks shit on millennials, right? Like, oh, they're entitled and they're impatient, they're hard to manage. And it's like, well, one, who's the generation that raised us? First question.
mm-hmm,
Second, to no fault of our own. Most of us were born in the right on the cusp of the internet coming out, um, and or after. And so a lot of us, I was born, before, I remember our big gateway desktop. We had to connect to AOL, and you heard the dial up. So I remember that. But a lot of other millennials that were born after that, that just, had the internet growing up, we're used to this instant gratification. We're used to being access to information all the time, constantly connected. And a lot of people didn't really have to work hard because of it. There's participation trophies for soccer, everyone gets one regardless of if you earned it or not. And studies show that that doesn't actually make the person who came in last feel better. It actually makes them feel worse because they're like, I'm being rewarded even though I know I didn't deserve this. And then
Yeah.
the person that came in first, it diminishes their accomplishment because it's like, well, they got one too, and I beat them, like my mile beat them by 2 minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so to no fault of our own that we have been raised like this, but then we get into, the professional world and we're hit by reality that like, no, you're not just going to get, a pat on the back for just doing your job. Like that's standard. And so now the problem is these employers are having to teach us. And I feel really lucky because I have really great mentors within management and the executive team who are teaching me these lessons of like, no, you need some patience. You're too impatient.
Yeah.
Be short term. You need to think long term about these things. I want something and I want it right away. And you're just like, no. Or like I'm very emotional, I get upset when news comes out or a client complains or whatever. And to no fault of our own, a lot of millennials are like that. We take things personally. And because we see all of these comments on Instagram and, a lot of that is tied to our self-worth. It's not just the like. It's not a number that just likes my picture. It's like, I get confidence by how many people like this picture. And that's just the new problems that we face. And so if one of my clients is upset with me, I take it personally and I break down and I cry and I'm upset. And they tell me, like in the business world, you have to separate it just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
You want people to know you're a human and you care about them and that's why they love you. But at the same time, you need to roll with the punches. So yeah, it's a crazy time. And a lot of millennials are now coming into the professional world and a lot of them want to make an impact, right? They want to know what I'm doing is going to change the world. And it's so funny. I have a really good friend who has some experience and who is now, coming into and trying to get into fintech and, are a bit picky about, she's going to hate me for saying this, but who when she came to me, she was a little picky about what she wanted to do. She's like, I wanted to do this and this and this. And I was straight up with her. And it's like, well, she did full-time college and worked part-time. And I only worked full-time for a long time. So I have a lot more experience in the professional world than a lot of my peers. But I'm doing school part-time. So as though they're graduating right now, and they have their degrees and I'm looking at them all jealous because like, I don't have my degree yet, but I do have this real world experience. I had to tell her, I was like, dude, there are people out there that have more experience than we've been alive.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like they've been in the financial industry for 30, 40 years. And then they've been in crypto for like 10 years. And like, well, we're 25. And I'm like, you're aiming too high. You're being way too picky for someone who has little to no experience in this industry. So, and that's true for myself as well. Like, I could go to another, tech company right now and do what I'm doing, but like I realize that I don't know shit. And like, yeah, I've been in the crypto industry for 5 years. And so for crypto, that's a long time. But if you take a step back, that's not a long time at all. So like, I'm not just going to leave where I'm at right now because I understand that I have so much to learn and you need that experience in order to make an impact. You're not going to make an impact by being somewhere for 8 months and then just quit like, oh, this isn't for me. It's like, no, man, all good things take time. And
Absolutely.
that's just a hard lesson that we need to learn. And I'd say it's to no fault of our own. And it's just the way things are. We live in this instant gratification world. We live in this Instagram world where everything's filtered. Everyone's only posting their success. No one's posting their failures. No one's posting them crying in the bathroom at like 2 a.m., right? You just see them on a plane going to Bali or whatever. So like, I don't know, to everyone out there, like I just want to say like grind it out, be patient. It's hard. I'm still learning, like, but it's a very important trait that we need, and to think about the long term. If you want to make an impact, you're not going to change the world in a day. It's going to take years, and it's not going to be just one person. Like you need a network of people to really champion it. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
well,
what
I
I've
mean,
learned.
yeah, and you can apply that to anything. I mean, you started off as a receptionist at your company, right? Or like
A temporary receptionist.
okay, you start off as a temporary receptionist, and now you're doing very well within your company. I can't, you've gotten promoted a few times that I know of. Like you're doing awesome things in the crypto sector when you used to be a receptionist. So for somebody else to come in and think like, oh, that's what I want to do. It's like, well, unfortunately, you got to pay your dues. And I say unfortunately, but really, fortunately, you got to pay your
Yeah.
dues. Like, fortunately, you get to learn this. Fortunately, you get to master something. Like, I think if people looked at things like that, there'd be a lot more successful people in this world, because it's true. We do want instant gratification, but
Mhm.
instant gratification doesn't truly make you happy. Without happiness and joy and success is all relative. Without the struggle, the success isn't very
Doesn't
great.
mean much.
It's
Yeah.
not very great. If you get out of high school and you start making $120,000 a year, that might seem awesome, but the chances are is like you're not going to develop the habits to even know how to handle that money. You're going to spend all that
Exactly.
money. You're going to be living paycheck to paycheck, working
Mhm.
12 hours a day, making $120,000 a year. You're probably going to be miserable, and you're not going to get promoted anymore, because it's the mindset you're going to have. So I think it's important for us to kind of set realistic expectations with ourselves with anything, but also with investing in Bitcoin. It's or cryptocurrency. You can do day trading, but you probably
Mhm.
have to know quite a bit. There's probably some experience you have to have with stock markets or money or numbers. Like, you can't just be average Joe and be like, I'm just going to day trade and get rich in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Mhm.
Everything requires experience. If you want to make money doing something, you have to invest the time on the front end. You have to
Mhm.
invest the time to create the value to make that money, regardless of what you do. So um, I think that's a good takeaway that people can take from this, is like, don't look at going into cryptocurrency as like a get rich quick scheme. If you're
Mhm.
truly fascinated, or if you like truly want to embrace it, learn about it. Listen to this podcast. Follow her Crypto Queen Instagram. I'm gonna give you a plug right now. She has an
Yes,
Instagram
crypto
page.
queen.
Yeah, I'll tag it in the description, as well as the book you just shared. If you can text me the name of the book, because I'll
Mhm.
forget if you say it. You don't have to say it again. But follow her page. Start learning about it, and start like becoming interested in Bitcoin, and play it for the long game. Like, do it because you care about it, not because you think you're going to get rich in a couple weeks, because that's instant gratification. That's relying on luck. And
Mhm.
what I've learned is luck is it comes through time and preparation and consistency. You don't just get lucky because you're like, I'm going to do this and bam. So I'd say that's a good takeaway. But yeah, I think that's good for today's conversation. It's very insightful, very I like how we went from like the technicalities of Bitcoin into the mindset and the philosophy.
Mhm.
Everybody I talk to on here always kind of shares the same mindset. It's an abundance mindset, but also, you know, patience, consistency, being disciplined, not just looking for a quick way out in anything we do. And
For
you've
sure.
experienced it with your career now. You've experienced it with fitness, with me in the gym. You're probably going to experience it with Bitcoin. You're kind of like
Mhm.
on the frontier with Bitcoin, which is rad. Um,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people can learn from your mindset. 25-year-old young lady doing very well for herself. But again, it didn't come easy. It wasn't inherited. You didn't just wake up
Mhm.
one day and your mom's like, here's this money, go ahead and make great things happen. Like, you've put in the time. I think that's the most important thing people need to understand, is you have put in the time.
Mhm.
People may view you as like, oh, this 25-year-old that's big into crypto, like, I don't know, whatever assumptions that they want to make about how it happened is
Mhm.
completely irrelevant. Like, it happened from the day you started, you started seeing the example your parents were setting, and decided to
Mhm.
say like, hey, they got to work really hard, so do I. That's when it started. My journey in fitness started when I was 6 years old and I started playing sports. I didn't just
Mhm.
do a 1 year bulk and then 1 year cut and I'm like, oh, I'm in pretty good shape now. I've
Yeah.
just been an athlete my whole life. So um, not to discourage anybody and be like, well, I don't want to spend the next lifetime doing Bitcoin. No, but
Mhm.
start taking the steps to elevate yourself from where you're at now to that next step. And if that means just learning what Bitcoin is and
Mhm.
what some of the pros and cons are, that's going to elevate you more than just going and getting $10,000 from your savings account and putting it into Bitcoin. You're going to learn more. And um, yeah, I think that's a good takeaway. Any last piece of advice for somebody new that's looking to start, mindset or technical advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the basics, like invest in what you understand. So education's key. I mean, there's a lot of really good crypto content out there, and I can send over some really reliable links to Corey. And so you guys can read about Bitcoin, what it is, how it works, as well as some YouTube videos. Crypto is volatile, so only invest in what you're willing to lose. And and yeah, this is the future of finance, baby. So like just start learning about it now. It's pretty interesting and exciting stuff to me, at least. But yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's a big point to take home too, is to be excited in it. Don't just look at it for the money aspect, but it's exciting. It's new. It's trending. It's a wave. So yeah, I'll link everything. I'll link the book. I'll link her Instagram if you guys want to check it out. Any useful links that she has. It might be for beginners or even maybe more so if, some advanced people may be listening and they want to further their education. But give Zine a follow. Follow her on Instagram. She's a great client and a great friend of mine, and she does love memes. She posts funny stuff. Like even if you don't know much about crypto, you probably get some. I like watching her stories on Instagram because they're pretty funny. Very a lot of stuff like relating to our current events and whatnot. But Zine, thank you very much for your time. Very informative, very insightful, very well spoken. Super proud of you. Super proud to be a friend and a coach of yours and all of your success. And I'm looking forward to experiencing and witnessing your continued growth. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Corey. Bye, everyone.